Now, South Africa is set to have its first female Chief Justice. This after the presidency announced that Deputy Chief Justice Mandisa Maya will succeed Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Zondo is expected to retire after being head of the judiciary since 2022. Maya will then officially assume her role on September the 1st. Legal writer for Business Day Editorial, Tauriq Moosa, joins us now to unpack the appointment further. Tauriq, thank you for your time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, viewers.
All right, maybe help us understand the weight of this moment. Of course, it's being hailed as an important role, or important milestone for transformation, but I think also just in the life of the judiciary.
Yes, primarily it's that South Africa will have its first woman Chief Justice. That has been, but importantly, this was perceived long in the making, ever since her first JSC interviews for this position. What's interesting, of course, about Maya is that she was both times when during the interview for the Chief Justice position, she was recommended by the JSC to be the Chief Justice. However, it was only the second time where she was the only candidate that she eventually was nominated by the president. You'll remember the first time she was nominated, she was up against three other judges, including now Chief Justice Zondo. And in that case, she was picked as the JSC by the JSC and recommended to the president to be the Chief Justice, but the president opted for Chief Justice Zondo. The speculation behind the scenes was that it would allow Justice Maya to assume the Deputy Chief Justice position, which she subsequently did, and then get to basically learn the ropes because Zondo was retiring in the next 2 years, which he's now doing obviously in September.
Also interesting here, I guess, that her appointment comes on the back of, I think, a recent report released by the current Chief Justice there, Raymond Zondo, showing a few challenges within the judiciary, alleged tussles, I think, with the Constitutional Court, backlogs, I think the efficacy of the Constitutional Court also put into question. So she enters the judiciary at a time when the challenges of the judiciary are quite public.
Yes, and we must also not forget that Maya was also the first, I believe, the first Black woman to serve on the Supreme Court of Appeal, and then subsequently became its president. And she served in that position for quite some time. And so she has led an important court before this. And so she's quite steeped in what it requires of an administrator. And the SCA today is regarded as one of the most effective courts in the country. It has about an 85% success rate for its open appeals that are before it, and it's been consistently acting and successful that way for many years. The issue with the Constitutional Court that she will now take over is inherent to the Constitutional Court itself, and it's been that way for a number of years. So I don't think she will be able to fix it. I don't think she thinks she can either, but she will be able to obviously improve given the identification that was enunciated in the annual judiciary report. Chief Justice Zondo spoke about the failing of the Constitutional Court to meet its target, and he indicated that the biggest reason is that because every justice, and there are 11, has to sit on every single matter, and they get about 400 a year. But plans are currently in place to help ameliorate that and to hopefully change the laws to make things more efficient. And Maya will be coming into that and hopefully lead the charge.
Also, I think what's important here at this time, Tauriq, is we've also seen a bit of politicizing of the judiciary, which I think is an important, aspect that actually takes over, this institution, being able to draw these hard lines. I'm keen to get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, so I mean, she's been fairly firm in her stance in being willing to take on political issues. And for example, she handed down the judgment recently regarding the MK's challenge over the challenge regarding Zuma, and she handed that down within I think a week, and she stood very firm regarding that, and she's been consistently so throughout her career. And the judiciary so far has always faced, speculation and criticism of some form of politicization, but it's never been proven, and that's been consistently the case throughout our constitutional democracy. And I think because she's been a judge now for 20 years and has faced all manner of cases before her, she's been fairly consistent in delivering consistently with that, and been successful in standing up to any kind of bullying tactics. In particular, because of her being a female judge, has also been part of the criticism that the sort of sexism that has been lobbied against her.
Another interesting one here is, of course, then the role of Deputy Chief Justice emerges. Keen to get your thought on what that might look like, and even the process that will now ensue, because, of course, it becomes important in also seeing through the vision of incoming Chief Justice Maya.
Yeah, the Deputy Chief Justice position, obviously, much like the Chief Justice position, is one of the 4 positions in the country that is strictly within the sort of purview of the president. Every other judge has to go through the process of having to go through a hearing from the JSC, and the JSC basically, in all sense of the term, basically picks the next judges, and the president basically signs off on them. But the top 4 positions, the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, and the Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, those 4 positions are within the purview of the president. Ramaphosa has demonstrated that he's been very open and transparent about how he picks them. And though the Constitution says he has to consult with the JSC, he's been one of the few that's actually allowed for an open, transparent process. Zuma was not the same when he picked, for example, Mogoeng. There was no hearing for that. He simply picked him after talking to the JSC. So what we'll see now is a similar process. Ramaphosa has been consistent about that. And we'll see another hearing for the DCJ position, which will probably take place later this year. There's been no indication of who the candidates are, of who is in mind, that the president has in mind. And there hasn't been much speculation about who that could possibly. It most likely will be somebody who's currently still sitting on the bench of the Constitutional Court, but, it could be somebody from the SCA like Maya was.
And then before I let you go, also, with the JSC and just, I think some of the tassels we've seen about the state of the JSC right now. I'm just wondering, as an important part of how the judiciary works, and of course a new Chief Justice coming in there, Tauriq, from a perspective, are we sitting strong there? Are there things that we possibly need to tighten up to ensure that, we continue to see the kind of progress that we're seeing with the judiciary?
The JSC has continued to improve, and that was led, obviously under Zondo's chairmanship. But let's also not forget that numerous times Maya herself took over the chair position as well over the last 2 years. There's plenty of concerns. Obviously, the tussles you're speaking of in particular is, of course, Dr. Hlophe being elected to the JSC. That is currently obviously the subject of, I think, 3 or 4 court bids at the moment, ranging from freedom under law to the DA, and I think even AfriForum as well has raised that as a challenge. But regardless of whether Hlophe is there or not, I think that the JSC has proved it's been consistent, because it's not just made of MPs, it's made of representatives of the legal profession, it's made up of the executive, it's made up of professors. And also now is firmly entrenching its various guidelines, which I think are very important. So the kinds of questions and characteristics of the judges, the candidates that we look for. So I don't think that the current challenges that JSC is facing is going to hinder the consistent progress we've seen from it throughout the years.
Well, Tauriq, thank you so much for this fantastic analysis. It's been a pleasure hearing from you today. That was Tauriq Moosa, legal writer for a Business Day Editorial.